Welcome. This is Voices Illuminated with Judy Liman, produced by the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County. 6 crack, 4 bam, 2 dot. You hear the mixing of the tiles? That is the sound of Mahjong. This game is a national sensation. Everyone is playing. There are various versions. Today we'll focus on American Mahjong. And I welcome Judy Umansky. Judy teaches Mahjong and Canasta at the Sid Jacobson JCC in Roslyn, New York, and is considered to be one of the game's preeminent teachers in the United States. She's taught for over 2 decades. Thousands of students from Great Neck to Greenport, Syosset to Southampton, Bayside to Boca Raton. Please welcome the Mahjong Queen, Judy Umansky.
Hi, Judy. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Thank you for welcoming me to this wonderful and new experience in my Mahjong and Canasta teaching career.
That's great. So we're going to talk about American Mahjong. What is American Mahjong?
American Mahjong is a tile game that was brought to the United States in the 1920s. It created a storm of interest. If you can imagine gin rummy, it's a similar concept where in gin rummy you pick a card. If you like it, you keep the card in your hand. If you don't like it, you discard it. The same concept with Mahjong. If you pick a tile that you like, you put it on your rack, and if you don't like the tile, you discard it. So a similar concept, but in Mahjong, you must match a pre-described card that is put out by the National Mah Jongg League every year.
Well, so how many tiles are there? I mean, there's a lot of them.
You play with 152 tiles, although when you purchase a new set, there are extra tiles. The tiles, if you bought and have a vintage set, are all hand-carved and hand-painted. Today's tiles, I think, are mass-produced and probably don't have the same beautiful drawings as they had in the tiles from the 1800s.
So I just want to get this straight. So how many tiles are there?
We play with 152 tiles.
Okay. So how is it? You know, from what I read, there was like an American fellow that went to China. This Mr. Babcock, he brought it back to the United States. Became extremely popular. And then what happened?
What happened was that Mr. Babcock brought back a set of Mahjong tiles to his wife. She in turn taught her friends to play. And when he went back to China, he worked for Standard Oil at that time. He realized that this was gaining popularity in the United States because of what he taught his wife. And he ultimately left Standard Oil and created his own business with 2 other gentlemen, American gentlemen who he met in China. And they started to manufacture the sets actually in the United States. At some point in his career, he did sell the game to Parker Brothers and others, and it was promoted wildly in the 1920s during the Roaring '20s. Everybody was looking for something to do. They were having a great time, and Mahjong became extraordinarily popular, and at the same time, there were no standard rules, so everyone made up their own rules in their own home, and as a result of that, it actually fell out of favor as it got closer to the 1930s. I'd just like to mention how Mahjong actually got its name. So when the tiles were developed and they're put into the center of the table, if we were to move them around gently, it sounds like birds chirping. So in Chinese, the game was called Mahjong. But Mr. Babcock felt that that was an awkward way to speak because he was an American. So he changed it to Mahjong. And what it means is game of the sparrows. Every tile in the BAM suit looks like a 1 BAM, representing the name of the game, Mahjong, Game of the Sparrows.
I never knew that. That's so interesting.
So no matter whether you spend $90 on a set or $400 on a set, no matter what, the one bam always looks like a bird.
So then fast forward to, I believe it's 1937. You got all these people playing the game, and there are all these different rules. So what happened in 1937?
In 1937, people were not happy that there were no standardized rules in the world of Mahjong. So a group of women led by a Dorothy Meyerson and a Violet Cecile, who, by the way, lived in the Essex House in Manhattan, put out the word that they would like to form a committee and standardize the rules so there would not be any misunderstanding during the course of the play of the game. And ultimately, that's what's happened. The National Mah Jongg League was formed in 1937 by 7 Jewish German immigrant women. And the rest is history.
How about that? So I see that you brought the card, but before we talk about that card, I have something that I want to play for you. Ready?
Okay.
And so that is the song of the Charleston that was actually composed in 1923, but it seeped into the Mahjong game.
Correct.
What is the Charleston, and why is it important to Mahjong?
Well, yes, the music you played is the music of the Charleston. And one of the aspects in playing Mahjong is a series of moves that the ladies called the Charleston. It's a systematic way you start the game. And to be specific, it's taking 3 tiles and passing them to the person on your right. You like what you get, you keep them. If you don't like them, you pass 3 tiles to the person across from you. If you like what you get, you keep them. If you don't like them, you're going to pass your tiles to the left. Excuse me. At that point, if you like the tiles that are on your rack, you can stop the passing. You do not have to have a consensus. Should we continue the passing? Assuming everybody would like to continue the passing, you repeat what you've just done. So you go to the left again and pass tiles. You go across the table and pass tiles. And then the last move of the Charleston is to pass tiles to the person on your right.
So we really did do a dance.
Yes, it is a systematic pattern, and it could be called a dance, yes. But it is named after the Charleston.
Very, very interesting. I like that. So everybody is waiting for the April card. So what do we expect?
I don't know. That's the mystery. No one knows.
But isn't there some kind of continuity? I mean, I'm looking at my past Mahjong cards. There are different sections. What are the sections that we expect?
Typically, on a Mahjong card, may I open this? Would you like to
Sure.
see? A typical Mahjong card is 3 panels.
Can we see the 3 panels? Yes. Okay. Very good.
Okay. The panel on the left in the upper corner is, generally speaking, the year. Is the year we are currently in. Underneath that are hands with all even numbers, and very often on the bottom of the card, they will change whatever heading.
Let me see that card.
Sometimes there's addition hands. Sometimes there are multiplication hands. This card that we have in 2025, they call it any like numbers. The middle panel is usually quints, which everyone knows there are quints is 5 of something. Then there's the consecutive run area. Then there's the odd number area. And in the upper right-hand corner are winds and dragons hands. Those are tiles that are in the set. Then the numbers on the next panel is, the next section is 3, 6, and 9, which is evens, 2 odds and 1 even. And then the last hand is called singles and pairs. It's the most difficult section on the card.
So sometimes, though, I mean, I was looking, there's like addition and multiplication and that kind of thing, too. But we don't know what to expect.
No, we do not know. Nobody will know somewhere around March 28th to April 3rd or 4th. That's when the mass mailing goes out, the first mailing. If you order your cards in advance, you will be part of the first group of people that will get their cards.
We're waiting. So
yes.
Let me ask you, why do you think it's so popular now? It literally, everyone I know plays it. My kids want to play it.
Right.
They want to have clubs. Why now?
That's a really good question, and I've thought about it for a very long time because for a while there it was not as popular as it is at the moment. I think COVID may have had something to do with it. We were all isolated in our homes. We had very little or no social interaction, and I think people, once COVID was over, recognized how important it was that we be with our friends, go out with our friends, and do something that's fun.
What about, I heard that, actually I saw a clip that Julia Roberts is playing, that Kelly Ripa is talking about it, that it's a lot of social media out there.
Yeah, well, I think that had a lot to do with it as well. Once a celebrity does something, everybody wants to see what it's all about. And there's no question that Julia Roberts was the first one that I heard about that was playing who is of celebrity status.
Well, I was talking and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to do this Mahjong podcast. And I said, what about the food? What about the noshes? What did people nosh on when back in the day and today?
Well, back in the day, the most popular thing that I recall as a kid was my mom would cut up a pineapple and get fancy toothpicks and put a fancy toothpick and a maraschino cherry on each section of the pineapple. And it made a lovely presentation until we found out that maraschino cherries weren't good for you. When I play Mahjong, when I entertain, it's usually something that you can pick up quickly, pop in your mouth. No knives and forks are used because you need your hands to play. And sometimes you play and eat at the same time. Cookies are helpful. Pretzels are helpful. Not potato chips. They're greasy. So you don't want them on your tiles. Sometimes a group will agree to break for a snack, cake and coffee. But Entenmann's Donuts were a big hit in my group when I played on a regular basis. They just popped in your mouth.
That sounds great. I mean, everything. And M&Ms I heard,
Yeah,
jelly rings I heard. And today, from what I understand, you got, wine in the evenings. And you really do. You have people who look forward to their Monday nights or whatever night it is, I would guess. So how did you come to teach the game?
A group of my personal friends asked if I would teach them, and I said I'd love to. So I very rarely do anything lightly. I always overdo. So I said, if I were going to learn the game today, what would I like to see happen? So I started to write down a list of vocabulary words. I then created some papers about how to play the game, the mechanics of the game. So we got together at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I introduced the tiles and how to recognize the tiles. Excuse me. Then we broke for lunch, of course. Then we went back to the game, and by then I had taught them how to play. And I walked around the table and walked around the table. I answered all the questions. And at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, my friends left, except for my dearest friend, Estelle, who told me what a wonderful time she had. She said to me, "You're very clear." She said, "You don't mind answering our questions more than once." And then she said the magic words, which were, "You're so patient, you should teach an adult ed." And it was like an Oprah aha moment. And the very next morning, I called Roslyn Adult Ed. I live in Roslyn. And I asked if they had a Mahjong instructor. And the receptionist said they had one, but she didn't work out. And I said, "That's because you had the wrong one." And that's how it happened.
That's great.
I figured, what the heck?
That's wonderful. What are your, what's the number one, the people, it's a daunting game, really, sometimes. I mean, you got to practice, and then you got to relearn it. Like, what are some of your tips? What do you really...
Do you mean
like, let's talk about beginner.
Beginner. First of all, a beginner typically is extraordinarily anxious. Secondly, depending on the age of the beginner, people have come into my room and said, "Oh my God, I've become my mother," which sometimes is something people don't want to do. They don't realize how important it is to sometimes become your mother. There's high anxiety. How am I ever going to learn this? And one of the things that people say to me all the time is, how will I memorize the card? So I make it very clear that you never have to memorize the card, because when we play with the card open in front of us at all times. So I go very slowly. I introduce the tiles. I give them backup papers every week, a review every week, and eventually they settle down into a nice routine, and we play Mahjong.
That's fabulous. I like that. So I'm like looking at my card and looking at my card. Like, I guess a seasoned player. I don't know. But like, what do you recommend? What are your tips for seasoned players?
I think one of the things that seasoned players have to remember, no matter how long you've played and how good you are playing the game, and even if you do know the card by heart, you don't always win. There is an element of luck. So sometimes you can be waiting for one tile, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and another person will win, and you think, what's happened? I was almost there. So there is an element of luck. I think patience is a virtue in this game. Learning how to pivot if your hand, learning how to pivot if your hand suddenly falls apart, and you're able to tell if your hand falls apart by the exposure of tiles face up on the table. I actually have some T-shirts that I wear, and my latest T-shirt says, "Be prepared to pivot." So it was a good question. That's what I tell them.
So pivot is the word of the day, I would guess.
I guess.
I think so. It's hard though to pivot.
Yes.
Like, how do you pivot? What do you do? You're looking at the section, and what are you thinking?
Well, in Mahjong, on these racks, if you claim a tile, you have to expose certain tiles on this rack. So the more exposures people have on their racks, you might be able to figure out what they're playing. So if you do figure out what they're playing and you have their tiles, you have to make a decision. Do I abandon the hand that I was going for to play defensively? Or do I say, what the heck, I'm going to throw a tile and perhaps they'll win? I strongly recommend you always play defensively, because if you can't win, even though you're the nicest person in the world, you don't want your friend to win in lieu of you. So yes, I tell them to break up their hand. Play defensively.
How about that? So how many people play typically?
Typically 4. It's always good to have a 5th player. The 5th player will rotate in after a hand is complete. The 5th player actually does have a role in the game. She's called the bettor. She will get up after the Charleston is over, walk around the table, check out what everyone has on their rack. If 2 people have the same suit, she might eliminate them from her choice. If one person is a couple of tiles away from Mahjong, she might bet on that person. If that person actually does win, then the person who wins will get some money, and she will share it with the bettor. When that round is over, a person who's sitting in the east position will get up, the bettor will come in, and you go around the table just like that.
Can you play with 3 people, 2 people? How do you do that?
If you play with 3 people the official Mahjong way, all the walls are built. These are the walls that are around these beautiful racks. The tiles are distributed, and then the person who is east throws out the first tile. And if you're playing the official way, you play Mahjong for 3 without the Charleston. If you're playing Mahjong for 2, about 10 years ago, a woman named Gladys Grad, who ran cruises for the National Mah Jongg League, I met a woman who was by herself. Her friends were doing other things. She had the tiles on the table, and Gladys said, "Let's play." She gave the woman another rack. She took the fourth rack, and they played two hands at the same time, and that was the birth of something called Siamese Mahjong. It's 10 years old, it's very popular, and it's a great choice if there are only two people.
How about that? I didn't know that. That's so
You can
interesting.
find the rules on the internet, of course.
Of course,
Yes.
of course. So it's a social gathering now. So you have different people playing. What do you see as the future of Mahjong? What do you think?
I think the future of Mahjong is very strong. I think that the young women today have daughters who are seeing their moms play, having a wonderful time, and I think that it's going to be ongoing. There was a time in the 1970s when women stopped playing because Gloria Steinem told them that they needed to go out and get a job and have their own money and to get their own credit rating. I recently heard that women did not have their own credit till 1974. It's like, really? I didn't even remember that. But I think today women are independent, they're self-sustaining, and they do not think of themselves as being their mother in a negative way because they see their moms playing and having a fabulous time.
Do you I go to and I sit at these tables. I'm like, okay, what are the table rules? What are the table rules?
Well, the nice thing about the National Mah Jongg League is that there are standard and official rules, and it states so on the Mahjong card right on the top. If people choose to change it and everyone at the table agrees to do it, then they can. But should they enter a tournament, which, by the way, I have run at the Sid Jacobson JCC, we're having another one May 8th, there are standard rules for that as well, and you cannot deviate. But if people agree to the table rules that they want to invent, that's fine. But it may not be that way across the board with their other friends. I teach the official and standard rules, so there's no conflict or confusion.
Is there anything that's an etiquette thing? We talked about table rules, but is there like an etiquette thing that one should or should not do? Meaning, like, I guess etiquette isn't the right word. Like, I think at the end, when somebody calls Mahjong, what do you do then?
Pay.
That's great.
Usually, when someone wins, there's usually a little bit of a conversation where people might say, I was one away, meaning they needed one tile. Somebody else is going to say, I knew what you were playing and I was playing the same tiles and I wasn't going to let you in. There's always a little bit of an autopsy, a review of what was going on in everybody's hand. If some people are disgusted, they will just throw in their hand right away. So everybody has a different personality. And personality is an important part of getting into the right group. So I don't think there are any rules for the end of the game. You do have to verify that the Mahjong is accurate, because if you want to give this person money, you want to make sure they're telling the truth. So,
it's funny. I was playing the other day, and I'm like, and they said, well, I was playing, line 2, whatever it was. I said, I want to see it. I want to see your Mahjong.
Yes.
And they were wrong. I said, I think you're wrong. I said, we always have to see it. I also like to see what everybody else is playing too.
Yeah, it's fun.
Because I want to know. I was like, oh, you were doing that?
Right.
And especially with the different cards, with the consecutive, and how important are those parentheses in the card?
Those are the most important. I tell my beginners that when you read the parentheses, the most important words on the Mahjong card are the words any and like.
Any and like.
Any and like.
I love that word, any. I play it.
Right. Everybody plays it. There are two, on this particular 2025 card, there are two hands where it says these numbers only, so you must follow the instructions. That's the purpose of having standardized cards, that everybody knows what the rules are.
I want to have a l'chaim to you.
Oh,
and
thank you.
I want to thank you And of course, a reminder, you could take lessons at the JCC, at the Sid Jacobson JCC with Judy Umansky. And what a pleasure it is to have the Queen of Mahjong here today. I also want to thank Priscilla Dolan and Bernie Fershpan, who created this great studio. Priscilla has been a fantastic director, and Bernie is the wonderful creator. Until next time, please visit Illuminated Voices with Judy Liman from hmTV and L'chaim.